Thanks, Venkatesh. Good afternoon, folks. I see you once again for the third session. Could you allow me to share my screen, please, Venkatesh?
Yes,
Awesome. Thanks. Uh, uh, so, folks, I come to you with the second part of a three-part series that we wanted to talk to you about, which is now that you have gotten selected and you are now going to go into the next phase of the program, which is actual problem solving. We wanted to talk to you about the mindset that you should have while problem solving. And the second part that we would be talking about today is the execution of problem solving. And tomorrow, Tushar Gupta, a colleague of mine, will be talking to you about the visualization or communication around problem solving that you should also be focusing on. Uh, Once again, my name is Karan Trehan. I am one of the engineering managers at Samagra. Just a recap to yesterday's session as well. Um, we are in the problem solving phase. Mindset is something that we spoke about yesterday. Execution is the next thing that we would want to talk about today. And visualization is what we would want to talk about tomorrow. Um, Yesterday, we spoke about three things under mindset. One is adaptability, second is curiosity, and third is impact first. Adaptability spoke in depth about being ready to accept changes in your problem statements because they were built some time ago. There could be increase of scope, decrease of scope, etc., etc. Second spoke about curiosity, not limiting yourself to the problem statement itself, being curious, exploring the code base, exploring other elements of the code base, and figuring out new things that you can add to it. And the third one is impact first. Whatever you are building, ask for clarifications on impact and talk to your mentors about impact. Um, I would stop here for around 2 minutes. I would want some people to drop into the chat out of these three, which is the one that speaks to you the most. So take some time, think about in the mindset. You had a day to look at it. What is something that spoke to you the most? Was it adaptability? Was it curiosity? Was it impact first? Uh, okay, adaptability from Prem Sai. Nupur talks about curiosity. Mohammed Zaid talks about impact, adaptability, curiosity, impact. Okay. Okay. Would love to know more. Yeah. Mm. Curiosity, having impact brings both adaptability. That's a good mindset. That impact would bring both adaptability and curiosity. Great. Good to see a varied audience here who are looking at not only impact but also curiosity, also adaptability. That tells us that the selection that we did is of a different motivations of people, which leads to a better result of a problem getting solved. So great to see this, folks. Thank you for the messages. Today we'll be talking about execution, right? Um, in execution, what do we exactly mean? Is the carrying out of a plan, order, or course of action. Now, in your mindset, you actually created a mindset and you created a plan with your mentors, or you created an order with your mentors to solve the problem statement. Some of the problem statements that I have gone through also have milestones attached to it, also have acceptance criteria attached to it, which tells you this is the way in which we will be executing the solution of the problem statement. Um, Now, when you are going through the execution of the problem statement itself, there are three things that we would recommend you try to do. First is you try to review the plan which has already been created. Second is you achieve the milestones which have been defined. And third is you define the next phase. Let's talk in depth about reviewing the plan. As I said, some of the tickets already have this documented, and some of them have the mentors have a very in-depth plan of what is going to get executed in what way. My first suggestion to you would be to review that plan with your mentors. What this basically means is plans were intentions by your mentors as to what is going to be happening, right? Every mentor has that plan of action in their mind for you. The idea is to discuss the plans with your mentors in detail. If the ticket doesn't have it written down, talk to your mentors, tell them, hey, how do we break it down into achievable phases? What are the nuances of those phases? They for them, because they know the entire system, they could say these are the milestones that we want to hit, or this is the execution plan. But there could be multiple unknowns that you as a new person would not know about. So you would have to discuss those plans and ask or understand the nuances, define the phases of executions and delivery for you. Whatever plans they have, break it down into achievable, executable phases, which can be delivered by you. So they could have a different pace of execution. You could have a different pace of execution. Define it and then discuss it with your mentors. These plans can also be updated based on circumstances and information, but keep this as limited as possible and keep this as early as possible, which is the last point. Updations are appreciated only at the start. As later updations happen, the more expensive it gets. So let's say you are building something, you had to build one AI model, right? You start building it, and let's say 1 month down the line, a new scope creeps in, which would make it very difficult for you to redo the entire thing you did in the past 1 month. So plan your entire execution in detail. Your mentors have been told to do this with you, but if you are proactive and you yourself come out with some plan or start discussing this with them, they would highly appreciate it. So this is about um, reviewing plans. The next is to achieve milestones. Now, as discussed previously, you have a plan of action in mind. You have written down what is going to be the plan of execution. The next is to actually achieve those milestones. Work on the milestones as defined in the plan. Stick to the order of the milestones itself. So the ordering is also important. You can't just go from let's build an AI model to now let's build a visualization of how it is getting used. You need to also build implementation of that model, delivery of that model, and finally visualization. So you cannot skip milestones. Understand in scope and out scope of the elements. So because we are working with a large code base in most of the programs, it becomes very difficult for us to understand, hey, this is something I'm not supposed to be doing. Because of us being curious, we could actually go ahead and start building things which are not really required just because we think it could be a something in our tickets. So go talk to your mentors and define out of scope things that you are supposed to build only an AI model. You're not supposed to build different variations of it. So that could be one thing that you define here. Each milestone achievement should be followed by a demo and feedback. This is extremely important. Every milestone should be deliverable and demoable. Let's say building an AI model, it should have a milestone which tells you about demoing the first version of it. It could be through a simple command line without any UI associated with it, but it's important to get early feedback. It is important to achieve those milestones and to get feedback at that stage itself. Otherwise, if you get feedback too late, it could be very expensive to redo whatever you did already. Uh, Focus on maintainability, extensibility, and contributability. I know contributability is not a word, but what we mean by this is whatever code you're writing, keep in mind that other people will be able to contribute to it. Other people will be able to add value to it. And that is what you have to keep focus on. Raise blockers as soon as you hit them. Don't wait for your mentors to set up a call with you every week. Raise concerns with them async. Don't keep calling them or don't keep messaging them. Raise a concern that, hey, I've hit a blocker, I need your help. And then start exploring other ways out. But raise it to them as soon as possible so that they are able to find time for you and to unblock you. Document each milestone right away. This is one of the things that we had spoken about in yesterday's session about impact. Documentation is very important. You need to document how you're solving a problem, because it is not only going to help in maintainability, in extensibility, but also in contributability. Um, and extremely important, celebrate milestones. Be verbal about it. Use the Discord channel, share information like, hey, we just hit the first milestone, this is how you can use it, this is a video, this is what we have been able to deliver. Celebrate milestones achievements. Sometimes your mentors, although will try to congratulate you and celebrate your milestones, it's important for you yourself to also visualize it, to create visibility for it, and to celebrate it. We want to create a culture of celebrating small wins as well. So this is the second part of execution. Third one would be defining the next phase. As I said, software. So as I said, there are going to be in scope things that you would want to do, and there are going to be out of scope things that you would not be doing in your problem statements. So software has no completion. It has phases and releases. Whatever you kept out of scope would become the next phase. So while development, document the gaps slash updations slash out of scope elements, discuss it with your mentors about the future of the product, and leave the project with a well-defined next phase. Leave it well-defined for the community program. Leave it well-defined for a code for GovTech 24. Leave it well-documented so that anyone else who wants to come in and start to build the next phase or the next things in the project is able to contribute to it easily. So this would be the third phase, where you are working not only for your current execution, but you're also working for future contributions to your DPGs, which is an extremely important element of the DPG ecosystem. Now, recapping, execution talks about reviewing the plan. It talks about achieving milestones. It talks about defining the next phase. Just like we did for yesterday's presentation, very quickly we'll try to get some understanding of which of these is something that resonates the most with you. So please, again, drop your feedback on the chat. I would love to see which one connected the most with you folks, and would be the one that you would want to work with. Reviewing plan, okay, great, Vinayak. You would want to look at what is already planned and want to review it to ensure it works for you. Achieving milestones, great. This is where coding comes in. So I think most of us are interested in that. Yeah. I think, yeah, most of us are in milestones, define next phase. Good to see that as well, leaving the project in a place where it is contributable and expandable. Um, Achieving milestones. Good, good. Great, great. Um, so let's take a case study for now. I think we have some time before we end. Let's talk about mm, okay. Okay. So this is basically a problem statement that we have from Samagra itself. It is for GraalVN. How many of y'all had seen this project? Any indication of that would be great. Any thumbs ups or anything, or in the drop chat, you can talk about if you had seen this problem statement. POC GraalVM for UCI backend services. I can see one thumbs up. I unfortunately cannot see all of you all. Um, okay. Okay, no problem. So basically, let's take this as an example, right? Um, there are acceptance criteria and there are milestones defined here. But let's say one of us in our minds, we can look at these, right? The milestones, and we can say, hey, the first one is to understand current code base. The second one is identifying the services that need to be ported. Third is planning the migration. Fourth is porting the services to GraalVM. And the fifth is testing and verifying the new code. One milestone that I can see right away, which should be added here, is documentation. So maybe when you review the plan or when you look at these milestones, you talk to your mentor and you are like, hey, documentation is somewhat missing here. Approach analysis is missing here. What can we do something as a milestone there as well, where I can present it to you and I can show you what I have done there. So maybe looking at that milestone and trying to review the plan in that way would be great. Acceptance criterias, maybe ask them for also out of scope elements. This talks about scope, but not a lot about, hey, what is not to be done in the porting. Maybe code changes are not to be done. You just need to port it from one JVM to another JVM, things like that. So documenting out of scope also kind of helps you to tunnel or to focus on the actual milestones that matter to this ticket. So I think, yeah, this was all that I wanted to talk about. I'll stop sharing now. Venkatesh, over to you.
Yes, folks, thank you so much, Karan, for an amazing session. Folks, if you have any questions, please, feel free to, raise hand and speak out, or you can even put it on the chat below. We'll be more than happy to take up questions. Anyone, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions. You can ask questions even from whatever all we have discussed in the last 2 days. We'll be more than happy to address them. So Janab has asked, what should be the depth of documentation?
That's a great question. I can actually take this time to talk a bit about some of the documentations that we do at Samagra. Um, okay. So Samagra works for a program called Samarth, which is basically is a program in Himachal Pradesh to facilitate education. So we basically have three apps, a backend and also an admin panel. What we've done is we've gone into details of the entire program. Um, just one second. Yeah. So this is how we basically kind of display our documentation, where we first show some UI elements to be shown to the user. We then also talk about a bit about each of the elements. Then we have a basic system diagram overview kind of a doc, where we talk about the various elements and how they are communicating with one another. Then we go into details of each of these elements. So let's say the backend, we go into details of how is the entire backend system documented, um, is working, what are the various repos that we have, and then we talk about important modules. So let's say there is an assessment module, which basically takes care of whatever spot assessment. So basically this app is used by mentors who go to schools and collect or take exams from students and collect all of that information for our backend. So how is that entire assessment module created, where custom forms can be sent out, which are ODK forms? Data can be collected and then visualized. Second is student enrollment. These mentors can also enroll students. SLC is school leaving certificate, and SMS is teachers can send out SMSs to all the parents of the school students in their class. So basically, it goes into detail of each of these modules, the internal working of each of these modules, and how all of these modules talk to one another has been documented here. So this is the level of documentation that we usually follow at Samagra, but your mentors would be the ones, would be the best people to decide the level of documentation for your projects. But this is a good reference point that you can take to them and tell them that this is something that someone has done and has added value to them. Maybe you look at it and give us suggestions and also implement it in your projects. So hopefully that helps you, Jenna.
Yes, thank you.
Manas, how do you organize your milestones? While working, lot of thoughts come to your mind and we create a list of tasks we would like to achieve. I often face problems identifying what to focus on, how to classify them to maybe different release plans. Can you talk about in the context of a ticket managing system like Jira? Okay, that's a great point. It's actually a very loaded question as well, and kind of is a completely different field of technology called engineering management, which I am a part of. Um, when you come with a loaded problem statement, let's say one of the problem statements that we have been taking as an example is the AI model, right? The requirement from business or from product can be fairly simple. Build a AI model which kind of takes in an input of let's say blood sugar levels and gives you an indication of if this person is going to have type 3 diabetes, right? Fairly simple explanation, but how do you go about breaking that down into milestones is something where engineering managers and mentors of yours would come in. In the field, it would be basically tech leads and engineering managers. But for you, it would be basically your mentors. As they have worked with the program a bit or the project a bit, they would know what are certain things that are already existing in the product, what are certain things that you can reuse in the product, and what are certain things you would have to develop from scratch. So the first thing you do is mark out the ones that are already existing. Second, what all you would need to update. And third, what all you would need to build. This is the basic flow of execution. And the fourth is integrating all of that together. So this is how I would go about creating those tickets for us. And then using Jira is as simple as what we have in most of our programs. Um, I can share that with you as well. Um, so this is basically a normal Jira board. This is what it looks like. We have a to do. So this is something that we have planned in sprint 13. We have a bunch of tickets to do. We have a bunch of tickets in progress. We have a bunch of tickets in testing, and we have already completed these tickets. So when these tickets are getting built, they get listed here. We plan them out. We start. We also have an estimate for them. We basically detail them out as much as possible. So let's say um, this one, right? So there is an in-depth discussion of what this ticket needs to do, and it is assigned to one of our engineers who then picks it up and executes it. So this is basically how I would break the problem statement down into things that exist, things that need updation, things that need to be built, integrating all of them together, and then displaying it as a demo to my mentor is how I would look at it. Hopefully that answers your question, Manas. Um, Moving on to the next question by Pratik. In our proposal, we also have mentioned some milestones based on our understanding. So will the plan of action will differ from it? How we and our mentors will be able to come up with a common plan of action? Um, you're absolutely right, Pratik. We had asked you to come up with a plan of action, but uh, what we are saying right now is your mentors have selected you based on your plan of action and your milestones, but they might come back to you and tell you, hey, this needs some tweaking. This is something that we should be doing first and this later. That is something that we are asking you to be ready for and asking you to be to also add value to and discuss it with them, saying, hey, I think this can be added as a sub milestone as well. So it's all about coming to a common ground with your mentors on the calls that you will have with them, align on that and then start execution. It's not going to be an either or. It's not going to be your plan versus their plan. It's going to be a combination of both of your plans together. And that would happen in your call that happens with them. The first introductory call, I would recommend you talk about your milestones. I hope that answers your question, Pradeep. Moving on to Nupur. Um, we were previously told that we should aim to under commit and over deliver instead of over committing. How can we do this while planning our milestones? I guess this is somewhat this is something that I kind of touched upon, where I said that when you're defining your milestones, ask them if you can also add things to it, and ask them if you can also remove things from it or change the ordering of. In that way, what you can do is you can over deliver by adding things to your milestones, um, while under promising, where you are not explicitly talking about achieving it, but you're just mentioning it somewhere in your plan, and then delivering it to your mentors. So that is how I would look at it. Uh, Keep it in your mind as a plan of action, but do keep it open, so that you're able to deliver it to your mentors. I hope that answers your question, Napur.